Oh, that too, yeah.
Yeah.
Andy's not
You
growing.
can
It's
eat it
one of the
over
other
thing or
CRFG
outside
members.
because he occasionally have in his store.
Yeah, that's where I get
And
the
the seed tends to split.
picked up there.
So it has
Mine
like
are
a
still
little
not
extra
anywhere close to
thick,
producing
solid.
Yeah, we have a member in our chapter, Santa Clara chapter, who is like a pop-up guy.
Yeah, that's where Andy's getting.
Oh, okay, okay, that's him.
Kind of early.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but they gave it
Summer.
during the festival a few
Right.
years ago.
Yeah.
Is it a
He,
beauty farm?
when we were still
Is it
having
a
in-person
beauty?
meetings, he would sometimes bring
sounds
pop-up
like
seedlings
beauty.
to sell.
Yeah.
You can't eat one without, and it's really
I once ended up with
super aromatic.
On that side.
I don't know, yeah, so I was just talking about my variety choices and how it's evolved, and that it's lucky that with grafting you can let your varieties in your orchard evolve with your sort of level of awareness. And hopefully, you know, that makes an orchard interesting. It keeps it pertinent, you know, it keeps it exciting. So you're growing things that you actually are excited about now, not what you were excited about 25 years ago when you actually cleared the land.
So
And
what are you excited about now? What are you trying to get out of your fruit?
I'm really excited about pushing like these red flesh varieties, these kind of obscure red flesh varieties. And what I'm looking for is a red flesh variety that's got nice texture and not overwhelming acidity. Trying something that's a little bit balanced. So, and also kind of these kind of Renette Franche, Santan, Carmine de Sonneville. Those apples have really complex, powerful, potent flavors, and any Pineapple Crunch is in the same category. Those kind of apples are exciting to me because they're just so different, so on the other end of the continuum from the Gala or from the Mutsu or the typical supermarket apple. And yeah, no, and I guess our situation is kind of cool. We're in Santa Cruz, and it's a little bit in the you know, in interstitial space. We can grow northern apples, we can grow southern apples. We have a super long growing season, so we have the opportunity to grow Pink Parfait and Lady Williams and Granny Smith, you know, or Granny Smith seedlings. So for me, it's also interesting to grow Allen's Everlasting is another one that most areas can't bring to maturity. So it's kind of exciting. It's like a niche. It's like a regional niche. We can develop or grow or find or breed apples that we could grow here on the Central Coast that nobody else can grow anywhere in the world.
But this was once a prime apple agricultural region, and no longer because of the concentration, just economic forces or taste demands or
Price of real estate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Price of the development. I think, you know, even the development of hydroelectric power in the Pacific Northwest with the cheap water and free electricity, basically up in eastern Washington, they turn the desert into apple orchards, and they've got 3 times the chill that we have. They can color an apple way better than we can, but they have to grow certain types of apples. It's 100 degrees until the 1st of September.
so you're able to perpetuate a really unique terroir here.
Yeah, exactly. It's finding like a niche varieties that make Central Coast of, you know, a place that can grow apples that they can't grow anywhere else, that they can't grow in some of the big commodity driven apple growing regions. We can grow, you know, kind of specialty stuff that's really interesting and valuable, I think. So anyway, so this place, we're growing on close centers. Our trees are very close together. We use, you know, 5-foot spacings, unless we're growing them on 2.5-foot spacings. We're mulching real heavily. Try to get hardwood mulch, but we don't always succeed. So when we don't succeed, we use softwood mulch. We use agave mulch, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so don't have much water. We have a little bit of a high water table in the wintertime and a sandy, not very water retentive soil in the summertime. So it's a weird combination of too much water and not enough.
Do you tend to like do one deep
watering a month?
No way. Yeah, a lot of people do. You know, like typical apple people will water once a month for 24 hours, and they'll just saturate their clay and then let it dry out. But me, I give each tree like 4 or 5 gallons of water once a week. My soil's real sandy. The water drops right through it. If I did a deep watering, I would just be watering the aquifer down below. So I don't know.
Any notes on your spacing, your training style, why you prefer your method?
Well, yeah, the close spacing, I like it because I can keep the tree, you know, vital. I don't have dead spaces in the middle of the tree, so I feel like it's pretty efficient space-wise. I don't have big trees that have the whole third of the tree with nothing in it. I have kind of small trees that I continually renew the branches and keep it all productive all the way to the inside, and then in that way it's kind of nice to have small trees with central leaders. It's easy to regraft them. If you have a gigantic tree, it's more of a, you know, if you have trees on 20-foot spacings, then to regraft and get it back up to filling the space takes 7 years, you know, something. I can refill my space in 3 years and I'm back pretty full production. So it's nice to have small, tight spacings, and I'm assuming that I'm going to be regrafting and, you know, and renewing the tree constantly. So, and I'm learning, you know, there's all different schools of pruning that people are talking about, you know. Now there's these, you know, popular now. Some of the spacings up in Washington, they plant them 18 inches on center, and they're offsetting the slanting the trees at a 71-degree angle. So every other tree is going, you know, off this way. They call it a tatura V, and the apples kind of fall. You pick them from the underside. You can just pick the apples as they hang underneath the canopy. But they use a completely different pruning system that I think I can learn a lot from. And the cherries, that's a completely different pruning system. I'm using a real slender spindle and pruning twice a year. And I don't know.
So, where's your fruit growing? Who is seeking out these apples that aren't Fuji?
Yeah, the nice restaurants in town. I'm having a lot of luck. I sell half my food at the farmer's market in Santa Cruz and half my food at nice restaurants. And like there's a Michelin-starred restaurant in Carmel, Auberge Carmel, and Carmel Valley Ranch, and Alta Bakery. Those are really kind of nice places that basically are trying to do farm to table, you know, high-end food. In Santa Cruz, there's some restaurants like Midway, a Bad Animal, and Bantam, Suave, Gabriella Cafe. Those are nice restaurants that, you know, they want to put something interesting in the menu. They like red-fleshed apples. Everyone likes red-fleshed apples. The farmer's market, people want to try anything that's not a Gala, a Fuji, or a, you know, a Red Delicious. So I have a lot of people just out of curiosity stopping by and trying apples, and they'll try 1 or 2 apples, and then they'll come back the next week and say that was really good. And so yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do is like education. I mean, I have to take my apples no one's ever heard of most of the things I'm growing, so I have to take them in and have people try them and hope they like them, and then hope they ask for them again, and you know, sometimes they do. So but it seems like that's not the problem. It seems like people are in the markets, people are hungry for something different. They're hungry for, you know, for red flesh, for good texture, for interesting flavors.
Maybe, Freddy, you should talk about the taste of the hornets. They seem to have certain preferences.
Yeah, well, it seems like if you don't have a Brix meter, you can tell which ones have the high sugar by seeing what they like. So we've got hornets on the suckle pears. Looks like red on red and Highland pear are pretty good, and
There were a few on that Wixon crab.
the
King
Wixom,
David
yeah.
crab.
So those I would like to test those with a Brix meter and see how they how they actually fared. But
They don't seem to have a taste for the European apples.
I wonder if we had a Golden Delicious out here. Anyway, so I talked about kind of like high flavored apples, and some examples of that would be Cox's Orange Pippin, which I don't have an actual apple. Carmine de Sonneville is a seedling of Cox's Orange Pippin, and it's really potent and really citrusy and high sugar, high acid. Suntan is another one. I don't know where that is. Oh, sorry, the last one got cut up. Red fleshed apples, we have Rubaiyat, which is kind of spectacular. Grenadine is quite pretty. This red on red it's a darker, kind of a redder and less pink. This Rubinette is very sweet and also interesting. Some of these things, are heirloom apples. Some are old European varieties, like Cox's Orange Pippin is an old European. Carmine de Sonneville is a newer. Suntan is a newer.
Reinette Franche.
What's that?
Reinette Franche.
Reinette Franche. People love this one. All the pieces are gone, and it's ancient. It's from the 1500s, and of a style of apple that is almost non-existent, and it's considered 100% flawed, covered with russet all the way over.
Russet's considered flawed.
Yeah. Everyone wants a Golden Delicious that has no russet, and if you have russet on your apples, you can't sell it in some places, in Whole Foods or whatever. Some of the varieties are old European varieties. Some are things that we've taken seeds from old European varieties or other, for instance, red fleshed apples, and put them in the ground and tried to grow novel red flesh varieties. And so some of those include this one, which is the red on red, and it's quite red and also sweet and tastes pretty good. The cornerstone is from it's from a grenadine, but it's not red fleshed, but it tastes pretty good. This pink ice it's not really red flesh, it's not really white flesh, it's somewhere in between, and it doesn't really taste that good. It's just kind of crunchy, but some people like it. I don't really grow it too much. Pineapple candy, that's a tiny little ridiculous apple that's got a greasy film on it, picks up any dirt that's in the orchard, gets all over your hands, but it's delicious. It's got over 20% sugar and high acid, and a really nice fruitiness. So
Plus it's small, which is really nice. Like, a lot of people don't want to eat a big apple. They want to eat, like little kids, they just gravitate towards that little apple that it's obviously made for them. They can hold it in their hand, and it's just so full of flavor, they just can't believe their luck.
yeah, it's weird. Like Whole Foods has a standard that's like bigger than any apple has ever, over
Right.
3 inches.
But nobody wants to eat that much apple.
I don't want to eat
at
a
once.
3-inch apple. I want that, and then eat it and be done with it, not have to cut it in half and put it in the refrigerator. Some of the fruit we have, we also have pears. We try to go for interesting pears that are not really represented on the market, and like the Seckel isn't a really old American pear that's got a caramel butterscotch flavor. It's got a peculiar flavor it's just irresistible. People love it. And Highland pear is another one. It's got acidity, astringency, and very high sugar and a melting texture. And so it's not just a bland, flabby, sweet piece of fruit. It's really kind of pungent and bracing. It's delicious.
Freddy's already agreed that when I'm on my deathbed, he's going to feed me slivers of Highland pears. I have to die during October.
You have to. Maybe I can freeze them.
That's an idea.
Now, we have a friend whose uncle died last year, and he bought Highland pears from us at the farmer's market, and he fed them to his uncle as his uncle died, and was the last pleasure that his uncle
It was
had
the
in
last
his life.
food that his
Yeah.
uncle ate.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's a classic bitter pit or cork spot or something, and it's a calcium deficiency in the apple. So apparently the apple, when it's, when the ovary is fertilized and it just starts to form, it's got an allotment of calcium in the cells of the ovary, and it doesn't get any more during the course of the fruit's expansion. There's got a fixed amount of calcium, and as the apple expands, the calcium forms the skeleton in the outside wall of the cells, and if there's an insufficiency of calcium, the cells expand beyond the point at which the cell skeleton of calcium can support that cell, and it collapses. And when you have massive collapses, it's almost like you have a bunch of soap bubbles and you blow them up and they get too big and they pop, and that's what's going on here. And so I've got it's kind of really variety driven, like certain types of apples get it really bad. Pink Parfait is notorious. This is a wonderful apple. This is maybe the best tasting of all the red-fleshed apples. It's not very dark red, it's not very pink, but it's got excellent texture and flavor, but horrible, proclivity toward a bitter pit. So, we have
How to prevent that?
a member of the Rare Fruit Growers is here today, and she's, pointed out that this calcium deficiency is not so much a calcium deficiency as a potassium excess, and there's potassium everywhere, and the potassium blocks the uptake of the calcium. And so if you apply magnesium sprays throughout the early part, just after petal fall, that blocks the potassium uptake, and when you have lower potassium uptake, it allows the tree to draw in more calcium, and it corrects the bitter pit problem. And so she had trees, her Johnny Gold trees were, her fruit was really riddled and worthlessly pocked and getting worse year by year. But since starting this magnesium spray protocol, she's reversed it, and she has got clean fruit on her Johnny Gold. So I want to try that. This variety, Pink Parfait, is terrible. It gets it really bad. I used to lose 60%, 70% of the fruit on this variety, and I like it so much, though. I like the fruit so much that I grew it anyway, but it was nearly worthless. Over the years, I think I've been applying calcium to the soil, and they say the tree doesn't take up the calcium very well. The gypsum is a poor, in the soil is a poor way to improve bitter pit, but over time, something has helped. The root system's more developed, or the calcium's working its way in, but the trees have improved. They look, that's pretty bad, but not all of them are that bad. There's quite a few nice clean fruits on each tree. So I'm hopeful that they're gradually getting better, but I'm also going to try the magnesium spray, which I think is super exciting.
That is an apple.
Put your hand down there for some. Yeah, it's ginormous.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
Calville Blanc. And it's an old French apple, like 1500s. They were all Calville Blanc. They've been grafted over to various things, mostly stardust, but yeah, they tend to fall. It's beautiful. It's a subtle apple. It's not a great seller for me. I can't market them because they look a little bit boring on the outside, but they have a beautiful, subtle, complex, interesting acidity to them. And they bake really well. So I like to have a few. I didn't graft them entirely over. I left a little core of Calville in each tree. I like it. This one behind us is one of my maybe top 3, maybe my favorite, old apple, and it's Allen's Everlasting. And it gets, you can see this is starting to develop this gold russet netting over kind of a real blood red. And it's got a yellow ground. It's a, kind of a beautiful, really, this one, they're green. When it's green, you can kind of get an idea, but as it ripens, the colors richen, the red darkens, the gold becomes almost illuminated, and the yellow background glows, and they are crisp and sugary, but really kind of hard to define, complex appley flavor. And really nice trees. The trees are compact, they're narrow, they almost grow like a pear tree. They're kind of vertical and fabulously productive. Yeah, okay, so I've got a series of perches. There's red-shouldered, they're hawk perches or owl perches, whoever wants to use them. We have a lot of bluebirds in the spring and through the summer, and the bluebirds will sit on the top, but bluebirds use these little boxes to nest in, and down there on those perches there's bluebird boxes lower down. There's a screech owl box or a kestrel box that's never had an occupant, but you can try. But the perches are pretty popular. Oftentimes I'll drive up, there'll be a red-shouldered hawk on the perch. You'll see me and fly away. They're kind of shy, so I have a lot of hawk activity.
Do you find certain advantages to having certain wildlife in your orchard?
Yeah, I try to encourage. I love to see bobcats and coyotes in my orchard when I don't have fruit in season. So I have porous gates. My gates have gaps in them that coyotes and bobcats can get through. But I block the gates when the pears and the cherries come on, because not bobcats, but coyotes will strip the pear trees up to like 4 feet, as high as they can jump. So there's a little bit of a tension between our relationship, but I do try to. They do a lot of work. They catch a lot of gophers, both, and the birds, of course. The bluebirds are endlessly vacuuming up, codling moth and insects of all kinds. I have some codling moth pressure, but I have a lot of light brown apple moth and leaf roller pressure, and all those are small moths and caterpillars that the foraging birds do. They're a big part of my resistance effort to that. They cause a lot of damage. This is a trap that's, it's got a lot of flies in it, but I trap yellow jackets during, right now there's the pear season's on. The pears will be completely destroyed by yellow jackets if the numbers get high enough, and even the apples on the tree, the sweet apples, the yellow jackets will start a little hole, and they'll just gradually work and they'll hollow out under the skin. Sometimes the apple looks almost perfect except for a little slit, but it'll be full of yellow jackets. Kind of have to limit them.
Here's the yellow jackets devouring a pear.
Random seed, and it's not so random. It's actually a seed of Allen's Everlasting, and it's crossed with a grenadine, and so the Allen's Everlasting is a variety up there that's got the beautiful stenciled russet, and this has a lot of the shape of the Allen's. It's kind of flattened, and it's also got a very crisp, nice texture. Also got high sugar, but it's got some high acidity that fades, when it gets really ripe. It's got high sugar, kind of moderate acidity, and good pink flesh, good color. So ripens middle of October. It's the latest of the red fleshed apples that we have, and it's got a very nice flesh texture, which is unusual. Like, one of the traits that travels with the red fleshed gene is a mushy texture. It tends to, the red flesh, I guess, the anthocyanins tend to either they encourage or they promote ethylene gas production, and the ethylene gas causes a softening of the flesh. So somehow you have to get lucky and sort of offset that with something that stops the ethylene gas from destroying the flesh of the apple. And this one seems pretty lucky. It's got a good color, but a crisp texture. So
What do you call it?
I call it very pink at this point, because I don't really eaten that many of them to get a real name, but that might end up being the real name.
So you just plant seedlings from promising parents and see what happens?
Yeah, I do some crossing, some, emasculate the flowers and intentional cross some of them, and sometimes when I'm in the orchard and at the end of bloom, I'll notice that the grenadine is one of my favorite parents, and if the grenadine is blooming really late, I'll notice that there's corresponding blooms on, the brushy mountain limber twig or the Lady Williams or something that's desirable for a parent, and I'll just say, well, those grenadines have to be crossing with something. They're probably crossing with, since there's very few other apples that are blooming at that time, I'll just assume they're crossing with one of those parents that I like, and I'll take those last few grenadines and grow the seeds from those as a sort of a semi-intentional cross. And
when do you find out if they're good apples?
yeah, you have to grow them out, and you get a little tree, and then you graft that onto a precocious rootstock, and then if you're lucky in 4 or 5 years, you might get the first fruits for that. But if you grow them on their own roots, it might be 10 years. So this tree itself, this is 2010 that this cross was made, and so it's 11 years, and it's got like 15 fruits on it, and it fruited for the first time 3 years ago and didn't fruit last year. And so, it's made, I think it's 4 fruits in its career. But now it's got 15. I'm excited. At that rate, if it goes from 0 to 15 next year, what does that mean? I can't even do the math.
I had read in a book when I was young that if you grow an apple from a seed, it can't make a tasty fruit.
People say that all the time. I've heard other people say, I think Michael Pollan says in his book, for every 10,000 seeds, apple seeds you plant, you'll get one good apple. That, the other 9,999 are only good for cider or, pigs. But I think that's maybe, a gross exaggeration based on the success rate at Geneva Station in New York, where they've made hundreds of thousands of crosses and haven't really come up with that many significant apple varieties that have ended up. Most of the good apple varieties on the market, up until really recently, have been accidents, have been random seedlings. I mean, in my experience, the apples, if you plant 100 seeds, you're going to get 10 apples that are really bad. You're going to get 30 apples that are meh, okay. You're going to get 30 apples that are pretty good, and you're going to get 10 that are amazingly good. So it's almost like, 10% is interesting, is really worth, pursuing. So I feel like 10% is a pretty good, if I could play the lottery, and have a 10% chance of winning something, I would totally buy tickets every day. So, yeah. So I don't know. So this is my little lottery. I sort of hide these trees from my wife. She doesn't know I've got like 150 of them out here. But,
so how many of your seedlings have you kept in propagation?
Yeah, I might have 10 or 15 that I think are really good. So yeah, and I've got a lot of them I'm still waiting for. There's that's the problem, is that like you start growing seedlings and you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what is a good parent, but then 10 years down the road you find out, oh, wow, Allen's Everlasting is an excellent parent, Grenadine is an excellent parent. So boy, then you start really focusing on breeding with those varieties that that you should have been doing, breeding with 10 years ago, but you weren't, and you don't really get that time back. So I feel like you waste a lot of time naturally in this process, and you just have to hope you live a long time, So.
Did you have a bunch of apples that you had to turn into cider or do something with?
No, they were kind of on us to get in the market. Starting in like July, they wanted us in the market. They liked our stuff, they knew about our apples, and so they kept saying, when are you coming? When are you coming? And we just sort of showed up as soon as we could, as soon as we had enough apples to make it worth it. But yeah, it is a little, right now it works pretty good. right now when I have the market, I can sell at the market, and if I don't sell everything at the market, I sell, like that's Saturday, and on Monday, Tuesday, I can bring what's left over to the restaurants, and it's only picked on Friday. It's still probably fresher than most stuff they would get, and I can sort of keep my flow even with, you know, my supply and my demand kind of balanced. But yeah, as far as having to make cider, I didn't really do any of that, but it does, you know, last year with the coronavirus thing, it was a little awkward at certain times, you know, when I had more apples than I could sell at restaurants, but not enough apples to sell at the farmer's market. I had to figure out things to do with them. There's some other things, I guess. Sometimes, you know, people I know will take some apples, but we always make some apple cider vinegar every year. We have some cows we like.
I bet that's delicious.
Yeah. Anyway.